Hi, my name is Sunil Pai. It's a really hard act to follow, so I'm just going to keep it really simple. This is one of the few talks where I don't really do a lot of code. And I'll just wait for a couple of you to sit down, I guess. Anyway, so it's an actual, the name of the talk is a very long, specific one. It's a 3-act play in which an upstart e-commerce player, I feel like startups should be called upstarts now. It's just a thing. Where we shed a legacy code base and start a relationship with a new technology stack, despite tight deadlines, unyielding competition, and an unforgiving product roadmap. So I'll give you the context, and we'll talk about this in great detail and all that, but first, something that's been bothering me for a while. We need to talk about the language itself, just for 2 minutes. So the entire problem that I have, that I feel most people have with JavaScript, isn't so much the nature of the language anymore. We have Crockford's working on it. We have ES6 coming out. And they're very smart people who are being paid a lot of money to think about this and make the right decisions. Google's throwing money at it. Apple's throwing money at it. My problem with it is slightly more base than that. I hate the Java part of it. This thing was written as part of a marketing thing, and we've never really tried to change it. And no real concerted effort. Arbitrarily, people will call themselves ECMA scripters. That's interesting. It makes you sound weird. Further, people just say scripters or JS, and none of that really works. So I think the closest thing that we had to a description of the language itself was the what talk, where the language keeps making you going what all the time. NaN is type of number, stuff like that. So the first question is, can we start calling the language what script instead? But it doesn't really, even then it doesn't really have the, the style that you would require from a language like this. Anyway, so now we're in Bangalore. We're taking over the damn language, and I figured that we should start calling it JavaScript. It sounds a little better. You could say that there's a Latin American influence when you're pronouncing Java. It still means the same thing. And of course, then there will be compiled to JavaScript languages, which will be YakeScript, YenuScript, YesToScript. So I see a whole ecosystem of modules around this new branding. So that applause is a sign that you approve of it, and from today we're calling it JavaScript. Okay, excellent. Fair enough. Now let's get back to the topic at hand. So Myntra, by the way, the mothership is around here. Flipkart guys around, people who were indirectly responsible for my salary. Hello, thank you. I'm drinking a lot of free coffee, if that helps. Anyway, so the context let me set for you is a little before Flipkart, of course. This is closer to, let's say, earlier this time last year. So we're talking about March. At this time, I had just finished my gig with Yahoo. I'd spent a year with them building maps, and I decided I wanted to do my own startup because that's the hotness, right? What ended up was within about 3 months, 4 months, I lost all sense of social skills. I was drinking, but not even heavily. Like I'd have one drink and start screaming at the neighbors. And like nice stuff, like, take care of your wife and stuff like that. Anyway, arbitrarily. So I was doing that, and Myntra were hiring. So it was a good match, I think. They would pay me to mind myself. Anyway, so what used to happen last year? At this time last year, Myntra was about 5 years old. And great relationships with brands. We have 2 warehouses, one in Bangalore, one in Delhi. We have a kick-ass engineering team. We have a customer care center, if you've seen it, on Hosur Road. And there's the office where they shoot all the models is separate from the engineering office, so we see it during orientation, that's all. It's not as cool as you would imagine. It's a tiny room, and they just keep changing outfits and going around. You lose the magic if you see how it's made. Anyway, but what used to happen then was the stack had grown as it had grown from a startup. You have to understand, Myntra started off as a personalized t-shirt company, but then they started selling the India cricket jersey, and the rest is history and all that jazz. That started off with, that was a PHP stack that was built on a product called Xcart, and so on and so forth, and a whole lot of stuff that had come together. So by the time I actually joined, there are a lot of these systems talking to each other right now. It's not your basement startup anymore. It's a smallish team, 60 engineers around at the time, but doing a lot of stuff. Warehouse management systems, order management systems, content management systems, portal guys, services guys. You can imagine all these are going around. But the problem was that the customer-facing part of it was all PHP. And as we all know, because Node is the best and JavaScript is asynchronous and all, PHP has a very blocking nature to this. So when I said blocking, how many of you understood what I just said? Okay, fairly enough. Let me explain it anyway. The entire deal with languages like PHP, or let's just say PHP right now, okay, because damn that language. When it tries to make a request to something like a database or like file system or stuff like that, it basically blocks the rest of the process for doing anything. This is annoying as hell, because that basically means that you're wasting resources. And long story short, this is what used to happen. Myntra would have a sale. Yay, awesome, we're going to have traffic, and they'll send out mailers and an SMS. I'm really sorry about those. So we do all of this, and people come onto the site, and the site crashes. At this point of time, we used to hover from between 14 to 16 servers for a sale. And these are like proper 16-core machines, 8-core machines, couple of 24 cores. And it was really annoying. What would happen is that we have all of this behind HA proxy, if you have used that as a load balancer. One machine would go down, HA proxy would remove it from the cluster altogether, and then the same traffic would be distributed amongst n-1 servers. It gets worse, and it was really annoying. And the difference between this happening to an e-commerce company versus it happening to like Gmail. So Gmail goes down, everybody goes onto Twitter and bitches about it. Oh my God, Gmail's down, nobody's doing any work, ha ha ha, all that jazz. When Myntra or a Flipkart or a Jabong, when they go down, we get called cheats. Hey you, why are you saying sale when you can't even keep your, this it's just for you're doing for money, la la la, all that. And it's annoying because like, Bap, I'm going through the process dump right now, just don't like, we are stupid, we're not, we don't have malice. At this point of time, we were also migrating properly towards a service-oriented architecture. We'll get to that in a bit. And this PHP thing was always the weak part of it, and that's annoying. This email went out from Shamik Sharma, our CTO, to the team at the time, and I'll read it out for you, okay? We have a fundamental problem with scaling any PHP applications, because when you do any kind of request with PHP, the process gets blocked. Looking forward to any ideas, but PHP doesn't sound like something that is amenable to a service-oriented architecture, given this fundamental limitation. Okay, he said that, it was really scary, but you have to understand the context of this, okay? Myntra is a growing company. We can't just stop and rewrite the software. We can't say, guys, come back in a month. And even a month wouldn't be enough because there are thousands of lines of code. And the CTO now has sent out a diktat saying, we are changing our stack. This is really scary business. We are a small company. It is hard for us to say that everyone who's been working on a language should move to another language altogether. But you know what? We knew that it was the right thing to do. This is, when I say small company, I basically mean this. This talk isn't so much about how we did something hardcore. We just picked the smallest set of things that actually worked and got it through. So some of the rules, obviously, stuff like feature development can't stop. We cannot. In fact, what we were doing for a while was we were writing for Node and for PHP. Just because like we had the A/B test going and we weren't sure about it, so we had to get the features on both ways. Sales and marketing were still going gung-ho. They were gathering money. Somehow they made money to live for likes, so they had to keep doing that jazz, and it wasn't getting over. So we finally ended up picking Node.js. This is the official wallpaper that you can pick up from the site. I like it because it's very clear about what it wants Node to be. A whole bunch of guys who are just talking to each other instead of a monolithic system. I feel like they put thought into it. That, or I'm just a fanboy, not sure. But I feel like that's the entire point of it. That part of their branding. Some other options that we considered were stuff like G-Event and Vertex, if you guys have heard of Vertex. And there were a lot of people in office who were apparently very excited about Vertex because, wow, you can use Java, you can use Ruby, whatever. At this point of time, I actually joined office and I was like, okay, let's just write regular functions and spit out templates. So yeah, basically we ended up picking Node because of two reasons. There was actual traction behind it. There were we knew that it was going to be supported as a framework, that it'll have a shelf life and not just be abandoned as, well, a weekend GitHub project, right? And familiarity. It is way easier to make a call saying that we're going with a JavaScript framework instead of saying something like Scala. Even though the wins with Scala or a Go or a C# or whatever might be bigger, much easier to find somebody who is able to write decent JavaScript, understands the language, and well, we say, okay, fine. Node is a nice little library, little networking library that you can use and generate your stuff. We did not pick it because of speed. You're right, like that's just it. At the end of the day, right, this is just a very fancy layer on the database. So most of our time is talking to services and data stores and stuff, and figuring out caching strategies and all that. And if you think about it, that was our problem. That would have been our problem with speed anyway. No matter how fast the node part of it was, if you added up all these guys, these services together, you're not really getting a speed win. Though we did get it, and I'll talk about that in a second. Quickly, I want to, if you're an engineer or you write code of any sort, I highly recommend that you read this guy's Steve Yegi. So Steve Yegi is an ex-Amazon employee who now works for Google. He's considered one of the Java gods. I know, shocking that I'm recommending him. But he wrote this post that was supposed to be internal to Google, and it went out to the world on his public Google Plus account. And it's very interesting. Basically, he's talking about the stuff that Amazon does right that Google doesn't. And he talks about how Google sucks at making platforms. They think about the APIs as an afterthought. And that's totally true, except that Jeff Bezos is a genius who decided that his e-commerce company is going to be a world leader in technology solutions. That's crazy to have that kind of foresight and decide that you have that. So going into our entire Node thing, we are very inspired by reading Yegi's platform rant, and we wanted to do it right, and that is what we're going to talk about right now. Okay? The key wins and learnings from this entire situation. So to give you a scope of how long it took, only sometime last month we completed our node migration to a stage where we say that yes, everything critical is now on node. So it's about a year-long exercise in the middle of sales and an acquisition and this and that. Mothership. First thing that we did is that we abandoned this entire monolithic idea. We wanted to see if it could work. Because very simply, we could say that we want to throw 10 servers at the search part of the site and only 2 for the homepage, or whatever it is. You want these things to be maybe developed by separate people altogether. They're separate teams. Doesn't make sense having them have that structure. So Node makes this really nice with Require, quite like Require as a module system. So this is just a broad sketch of how it's done. Our home and landing pages are a separate stack, and for those, there are special drag and drop editors for the marketing guys to go and put banners and figure your click-throughs and all this shit that you don't know, that's not polite to talk about in the company. But these pages are those pages, the home and landing pages. Very quickly, they go get a layout from a database somewhere, stitch together some images, HTML, spit it out onto the page. Watch it. Search and details is, I worked a little closely on this project. We started off saying that we are going to build the fastest search page in the country for an e-commerce site. Very long goal, but we did it. We have the numbers. We beat Flipkart. We still beat Flipkart. We beat Jabong. We beat, like the rest are nowhere even close. And we'll talk about why we got there. It's not because we are, anyway, so the search and details page, as you can imagine, a lot of traffic happening on that. All the offers actually go straight to a list page where you show a grid of products, then you go see the thing, add to cart, and you've got it. So yeah, but this actually helped that we managed to split amongst this. And it extends to more than just the visible parts of the site. This extends to stuff like little API endpoints, families of API endpoints. Like we have a little Node app that serves our Android app right now. We have a little API gateway that's used for stitching together services from other stacks. Quite nice. So we have routing layers at like an HA proxy level and very minor localized routing inside a Node app itself where you want it. Sounds fancier than I make it. One of our very big wins was parallelization. Okay, so this is what we got from JavaScript. This specific thing that we could achieve very easily. I've given a talk on this at Bangalore.js before, but let me explain the general context to you, okay? Everybody here has done like web development, right? Something to do with the web. And it's great. Once we decide that we're talking HTTP, the role of Node is very simple. I talk to this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy, put the data together, give it back to the consumer. Damn easy. And not even in an HTML circumstance, mind you, not just that. Little APIs that we stitch together. Enough people are raising their eyebrows like, yeah, it looks nice now and it's going to get really bad. I'll get back to that in a second. Because we were using Browserify and we were doing Node properly, we decided to do it right, and we installed an NPM registry on campus. Do I say on campus? Well, in the office, there's one box which has CouchDB and NPM installed on it. And that's just, oh my God, so good for deploys where So other languages have this, like I think it's called a Nexus registry. Yahoo has a big ass deal about this. If you work in Yahoo, you know they have package registries and so on. NPM is really easy, nice, simple. You say you publish, people have permissions to it. You can figure out a way to make exact builds, and it gives you documentation for all of this. So private NPM registry, if you're doing any kind of node work, highly recommend that you spend a weekend, just get it set up and start publishing to it instead of using like Git URLs. It's pretty cool. There are problems with actually having it be reliable, but we have been fine so far. We've been okay. So my next slide, I'm going to quickly show you for about 1 second a list of all our modules. I can't show it to you for longer than that or I'll get fired, okay? But just to give you an idea of like how we split out our code. Okay, so services, utilities, libraries. There are a bunch of quick apps there. There's some stuff that we use for UI. There are components down there on the left side and service clients in the middle. Thank you very much. Okay, fine. You guys got all that, right? Excellent. So those are our modules. That's how we write code. There is no class definition in the entire code base. I don't know how to use classes. It's not so much like I have an opinion about it. I like functions that take arguments and return objects back. So that works for us. Most of our libraries are like that. Even our views are like pseudo classes. They call new by themselves. But that's fine. We would just want quick view objects that we can stitch together in a template and do stuff. UIKit UIKit is still an experiment. The reason I bring it up, so UIKit is Myntra's internal version of Bootstrap. It's damn rowdy. I'm not even saying it to sound cool. It's not cool. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's got buttons and it's got tables and it does typography and a little bit of layout and a grid system. Awesome. Needed that. Works for us. Point being, don't repeat your style across your applications, especially if you're doing a node app. Your header has to look the same even if you include it from one app and the other. Figure out a way to actually structure your CSS. Use whatever, less Sass, that's your deal. But my point is, like, give it some thought. It just shouldn't. You do the same thing for your JavaScript, you should do the same thing for your CSS, I think. Like I said, all these different pieces that we've been building, we've been stitching up a couple of different ways. So for example, we could have it running as a little, as a server itself on one port and then have another server proxy requests down to it, either at the node layer or at the HA proxy layer. And since Express actually are fully contained apps in themselves that you can mount onto each other if you've used Express, we do that as well. Works fine for us. There's no clear angle yet, and I think we'll resolve this year as to what our preferred strategy is. But right now, it's very much, bop, we have to get to production, put it on the damn thing, we're done, go home. Okay. Beta.mint. Yahoo does this one thing right, and I'll tell you specifically what it is. When I joined the company, it bothered me that I had to take my laptop to the CTO to show him a demo, or I have to get it on QA. And that's like a whole other mess altogether. Instead, what I wanted him to do, what I really wanted was a box of my own that I could quickly deploy stuff to, or anyone on the team could deploy stuff to, and then anybody else in the company could look at. It's the smallest thing. You don't really see this being spoken about. But the fact that my CTO said, yes, I have that approved mail, I'm going to frame it sometime. The fact that he said yes to me and that I could do this meant that we had a 24-hour cycle where everyone on the team, not just developers, designers, product managers, stakeholders, they could basically have a look at everything and see if it was right. So we had a 24-hour cycle of feedback on everything we were building. Immensely useful. Yahoo does this right. Yahoo gives every employee this automatically generated box that's on the network that you can host and all that. Consider doing it for your own company as well. So we use StatsD and Graphite for our internal graphs. That is a graph of a particularly rough day. I refuse to tell you which day it was. But that was when our services were going bad. We were being called cheats. But at least we had the data. We could see what was going on. And we're using New Relic for monitoring. Very easy, one-line drop-in, and you get graphs for your thing, how your CPUs are doing. Little expensive, but funding. Okay, so we did all that. We worked nights, it was great. We could do all the functional stuff, choose the libraries we wanted. There's not one line of jQuery in this entire code base, thank you very much. It was mostly because we picked whatever we wanted. And so what did we gain out of all of this? First of all, for me, I managed to build something after failing miserably at my own startup, so personal self-esteem. But it wasn't just me. There was a bunch of people who were involved in this. Half those guys are actually sitting back there. Feel free to go up, take autographs, ask them questions about the thing. And but after we did all of this jazz, I don't want to show you many graphs. I want to quickly show you like one slide which I think has the best impact, okay, about the stuff that we could do. So our previous situation was we needed 15 servers to do a sale, okay? After the migration, it took one. We could, at peak time, during when we actually deployed sometime last year, earlier this year, we could run all of Myntra's traffic through one server. This is dream situation, okay? All response times were halved or better. And I don't even want to say better here because I'd have to go back and I don't want to like legally binding to say such thing. But yes, at least halved. And that's awesome because not only does that mean that the user is getting his page a lot faster, it means that our servers are freeing themselves up much faster for more people. And that's great. Page load times were halved. This is also because we did a number of things on the front end that I haven't even touched on. But yes, and like I told you, it was a single page app, so there were very few full page loads anyway. But yes, metric shows that the page was loading a lot more snappily. Page weight was halved. Now that's a very asterisk point because a lot of stuff on our page is actually images of the actual products. And I'm not counting it because it makes my numbers look bad, but you can imagine that it does, right? And some of this is not true anymore. We are not at one server anymore for traffic. People are just thronging in our, like I said, funding and Flipkart and this and that. So we're getting a lot more people now, and we are now using 3 servers. So that's not too bad, I think, for running Myntra.com's front-facing servers. Excellently. But you know what? These are technical benefits. The actual ones, customers got a better experience. Do you know how nice it is to see tweets about something that you've just built? Hey, I like the new Myntra UI, it seems smoother, and I'm like, yeah, functional programming. It made maintenance a lot easier, of course, because fewer machines and the systems were way more comfortable with it. No monolithic bit. The moment something went down, we knew which part was actually affecting it, metrics on the entire thing. And we could run sales whenever. We could have a sale and people would come and they could buy stuff. As you can imagine, that's the number one rule in Myntra. Everything else is negotiable. We could do that. But on that note, quickly, the future itself could be anything. I'm not here to say that Node.js is the silver bullet to your problems. In fact, at the rate that traffic is growing, Myntra will have to start considering alternatives. Maybe my code is rowdy as hell. As you can imagine, I'm wearing these grass chappals, dirty jeans, and and I'm very grateful that Myntra gives me the opportunity to build software that I'm proud of, but I sometimes wonder if they're doing the right thing by giving me money to do this. But the future could be anything. We could move to Go, we could move to Java, we could do a bunch of things. So I want to end this basically with another mail from Shamik himself, where in the mail thread where we're talking about, oh yes, Node has solved a bunch of our problems. And he talks about how Node.js is not really different from PHP in that basis for us. PHP worked for us brilliantly well for years.